Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to this morning's meeting on the homelessness question. I think we'll go ahead and start at this end with Jennifer. Would you just like to introduce yourself and the role you play here?
Oh, she just needs to push the button there. There we go. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Eby. I'm the Assistant Director of Community Development, and happy to have you all here with us today. We have a lot on our plate. I think we're going to hear quite a bit from on the mental health side as far as services and that sort of thing that are available, as well as we're going to hear from Leandra for our Care Compact, Leandra Montoya, as well as we have staff from All Health Network that's also going to talk with us about their navigation team that works in connection with HEART. So a lot of good information to share with you all today.
Good morning. I'm Wendy Holmes, Communications and Public Affairs Director for the county. We'll be talking more today about communications.
Thank you, and Wendy's the best at getting the word out about what's going on in this great county. I'm Laura Thomas. I'm one of the 3 Douglas County Commissioners. I'd like to welcome all of you here to this event so we can learn more about what's going on in our community. Mayor?
Thank you, Commissioner. Jason Gray, Town of Castle Rock Mayor.
Good morning, Erin White, representing Winter Shelter Network and Manor Resource Center.
Good morning, Amy Edwards. I'm an Assistant County Attorney with the County Attorney's Office.
Good morning, Marissa Harmon, Lone Tree City Council.
Tim Beals, Lone Tree Police Department, attending on behalf of Chief Kirk Wilson.
Darren Weekly, Sheriff of Douglas County.
Mike Wade, Executive Director of the Douglas County Community Foundation.
Tiffany Marcito, Supervisor of the HEART team.
Good morning, Rand Clark, Community Services Manager, Douglas County.
Good morning. Laura Hefta, Parker Town Council Member.
Hi, Mike Hill, Director of the Douglas County Health Department.
Thank you, Mike. And so the first thing on today's agenda is mental health, behavioral health, and homelessness. Leandra Montoya from the Douglas County Mental Health Initiative. Melissa, I don't want to say your name wrong, Melissa, I'm sorry. And Kayla Steffi from the All Health Network. I'm sorry, what? Oh, there's people online who need to introduce themselves?
Oh. If there are any executive committee members online that would like to introduce themselves, we'll give you a moment to do that as well.
Hi, good morning. This is Maria Chano, the Executive Director of Douglas County Housing Partnership. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you, Maria.
Morning, it's Jen Bach with All Health Network.
Thank you. Okay, so where is Leandra? Leandra, would you like to come up and start?
Hi. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us today to speak about one of the mental health initiatives programs, the Care Compact. I'm Laura Cinconi, Douglas County staff and coordinator of the Douglas County Mental Health Initiative.
I'm Leandra Montoya. I'm the Care Compact Navigator with Douglas County, and I also support the projects of the Mental Health Initiative.
I am going to give a very quick overview of the Mental Health Initiative and give most of the time to Leandra to speak about the Care Compact. Next slide, please. The Mental Health Initiative was established in Douglas County in 2014 following a few quite tragic and traumatic events in and around Douglas County, and was formed specifically to address gaps in mental health services and connect people to care when they needed it, ultimately helping people avoid falling through the cracks of the mental health system. We have a very robust group of partners supporting the Mental Health Initiative, and from the beginning have been grounded in data, driven efforts to inform the programs that we have under the initiative. So this started with process mapping, how organizations assist people with mental health needs and substance use disorders, intellectual and developmental disabilities and delays. And also later, we developed a blueprint, which is our current document that we look to guide the strategies of the mental health initiative. Next slide, please. We currently have approximately 50 organizational partners in the Douglas County Mental Health Initiative, representing over 20 sectors of health and human services, social services, education, healthcare, law enforcement and other first responders, public health, community-based organizations, and nonprofits. I'm sure I'm missing a few. It's quite a diverse group, but as I'm sure you're all aware in this effort to address homelessness, that it really takes a multidisciplinary group to solve incredibly complex problems. So we have a robust group supporting the initiative. Next slide, please. This is just to illustrate broadly our governance structure, how we work together. We're guided by a common vision that was developed by the Mental Health Initiative collectively. Our large group meets quarterly. We have a steering committee, much like this executive committee, that guides the strategy of the Mental Health Initiative, and various working groups that are flexible based on the specific needs that we are addressing at any given time. So we have some kind of set priority areas that come from our blueprint. But as you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, we'll be developing a suicide prevention working group this year, as well as a working group on civil mental health certifications based on the needs that have been frequently mentioned at our meetings. Next slide, please. Broadly, these are the various topics that the Mental Health Initiative is addressing, and they align with the priorities and goals in our blueprint. Next slide, please. And to summarize our approach, the Mental Health Initiative is focused on a spectrum of the spectrum of mental health and behavioral health need in the community, anything from general population health promotion and prevention work, into treating mild and moderate behavioral health and mental health needs, but also looking at crisis, acute care, and specialty behavioral health for folks that are living with serious mental illness or chronic substance use disorders. So we care about the whole spectrum. It's all important to supporting whole person health, and we also look at this model as including everyone across the lifespan, from the itty bitties through older adults. Next slide, please.
So the CARE Compact is one program of the Mental Health Initiative that specifically addresses care coordination needs for individuals with complex and cross-system needs related to their mental health, substance use disorders, intellectual and developmental disabilities, as well as safety net needs. So we offer enhanced care coordination through linking existing case management and service providers to form individually tailored care teams based on the client's needs and goals. We have about 14 community partners right now that are formally included in the CARE Compact network. That's represented through our hospital systems, local substance use services, IDD services, our community mental health center, All Health Network, our regional Medicaid, Colorado Access, single entry point, and also county government systems such as human services, administration as the backbone to the CARE Compact's work, detentions and the reintegration program, probation and pretrial services as well. Our goals are to reduce duplication of services by improving this cross-system communication and collaboration so that individual case managers, maybe from different sectors, are working together instead of duplicating the same kind of work on behalf of the client, which allows us to have more efficiency in connecting them with services. We're also hoping to improve transitions between levels of care and care types. So, for example, if a client is discharging from the hospital, we're hoping to improve that transition back to the community by wrapping them around with supports and services. We're also hoping to improve access to care and streamline these connections to services by helping folks overcome barriers to care or offering accommodations or other types of specialized needs that these clients might have. We're also hoping to reduce reliance or interaction with our crisis, emergency, and acute care services as well. So when we see folks who are frequently engaged with these systems, it's a sign to us that they might need more support in the community. And so we overall are hoping to improve health and quality of life outcomes for these folks. Next slide, please. So this is a framework of the Care Compact to kind of demonstrate what this looks like. On the left-hand side, we're hoping to reduce reliance on our engagement with those systems, so inpatient settings and criminal justice settings. On the other side of that dotted line are those crisis response systems, which a lot of our clients frequently interact with, but we're also hoping to limit those by connecting them with the partners represented on the right-hand side of that circle there. My work is to kind of coordinate these partners and bring everyone together to make sure we all are on the same page, we have the same amount of information, folks are their safety net needs are being addressed, and we work together with the lead provider to set these services in place for the client. You'll see that Case Manager Peer Recovery Coach is the DIAD program, which is a grant-funded program in partnership with All Health Network that supports folks in the community in these transitions of care and helps bridge the gaps between inpatient and outpatient services. So when folks have maybe a week or two between appointments, things like that, these folks can meet people in their homes or in the community to help them with a variety of safety net needs. Next slide, please. So this is broadly our criteria for the Care Compact. The folks who are a good referral would be those with complex and cross-system needs. So they at least need to have 2 or more systems or agencies involved. And they are folks who also must have one of the following, so mental health diagnosis or needs, substance use diagnosis or needs, or an intellectual and developmental disability. Right now, we're exclusively serving adults, but we are working on the development of a youth care compact program to start to serve youth as well, because we are continually hearing how this is a needed service for children and youth in our community. This engagement and risk criteria just represents our goal to capture what types of emergency systems and crisis level systems that our clients are coming in with when they're referred, to hopefully reduce engagement with these systems or the level of risk when they are closed to the Care Compact. So clients don't necessarily have to have engagement with these systems, but we're hoping to address that if that is the case. Next slide, please. So I'll just breeze over this, but these are our top referral sources and the referral sources in general to the Care Compact. The community response teams, adult protection, the Centura Hospital systems, specifically Castle Rock Adventist, and jail reintegration and JBBS are our top referrers to the Care Compact. We also started opening up referrals to family members and community members themselves, so that's something we've started seeing more recently. And on the right-hand side are just the broad array of the need areas that we're seeing for our Care Compact clients. So mental health and clinical services, of course, but also a lot of these make up some of those social determinant of health needs. So food, transportation, connection to those home and community-based services through the Medicaid waivers. So this is just kind of a way to capture the different needs that we're seeing, which are pretty broad and complex at times. Next slide, please. So the Care Compact impact, just to capture, we started our pilot in mid-December of 2020. We've received 88 referrals so far and have enrolled 68 clients in the program. Those are folks who are, after they're referred, are willing to engage and sign a shared release of information for partners to communicate with each other to offer that care coordination. We have seen, and this is a sample size of clients that we've served and have been since closed to the Care Compact. Prior to the CARE Compact, this is 3 months prior, these were the levels of law enforcement and crisis system engagement. And after closure, 3 months and 6 months, we've been able to dramatically reduce those contacts and utilization. So it tells us that folks are being better supported, or at least know who to call and go to when they're in a place where their mental health is in need, rather than having to wait till it gets to the level of crisis. And this at the bottom here is just demonstrating the kind of makeup or where folks are living in the county. So most are in Castle Rock, and the next is 22% in Parker. Next slide, please. So getting specific with housing needs, 71% of our CARE Compact clients were homeless or at risk of homelessness. So that's 48 out of that 68 total client enrollments. In this graph here, it demonstrates 47% of those were homeless and 24% were at risk. 22%, so about a quarter, had no housing need. And then that other 7% are folks who were enrolled. They signed the release, but we were never able to engage in contact. And again, this city jurisdiction, these percentages are specific to those with housing needs. It's a little bit different, but very similar to the overall CARE Compact client makeup. Next slide, please. So these are our demographics of those with housing needs. 63% male, 35% female, 2% non-binary. The vast majority of our folks are relying on Social Security disability or Social Security income for to meet their financial needs. 21% are unemployed, and I mention that because some folks are trying to get back into employment and need kind of mental health stabilization to get to that point. And another handful are also working on applying for Social Security and are relying on sometimes natural supports to support their needs in the meantime. The age breakdown is pretty even generally across the board, although we see the 26 to 40-year-old age range is the most frequent. And insurance type, the vast majority of all CARE Compact clients have Medicaid, but there are some that have Medicare as a primary. And then with regard to diagnosis or clinical needs, so all of those with housing needs have a mental health disorder or a mental health need that's presenting. 35% of those have a substance use disorder. 31%, so almost a third, have that intellectual and developmental disability as well. And 27% report a traumatic brain injury. And then 65% overall have 2 or more of the above, so they have some type of co-occurring conditions, which can sometimes make it more complicated to access services that are specific to their needs. Next slide, please. So this is to demonstrate our impact with regard to housing connections. So of those that were homeless and at risk, 58% of those clients, we were able to secure or sustain long-term housing after CARE Compact enrollment. 67% of all of the homeless clients secured long-term housing, and 40% of all of the at-risk clients sustained their housing. So sustaining meaning they were able to connect with support services or financial support to prevent eviction or loss of housing. You'll see in this graph here, these are the types of housing connections we've been able to make for folks. So most frequently it's assisted living facilities. A lot of these folks have such a complex array of needs that assisted living can actually offer those support services more in depth. And in some cases, that's a temporary setting if they are able to reach a point in their recovery where they want to go back to work again. And we do have a lot of folks who have that desire to want to go back to work again, but recognize that they need the setting as a way to kind of reach that point in their recovery or level of functioning. 17% are with family and friends. I would say a lot of those that have that need kind of to sustain their housing or were at risk if we were able to put enough services in place, we were able to reduce behaviors or symptoms enough to keep them in place. And then host home providers, sober living, and therapeutic community are the other types of housing situations we've been able to connect them with. Independent housing is a little bit trickier, and that's usually, again, where we're sustaining where they're at currently, instead of actually being able to find an apartment for some of these folks. So just to give you a bit more background. Otherwise, as, you know, on the other side of the coin, clients with the unmet housing need who have been working with the Care Compact, 20% of those almost are still pending that connection or still have ongoing work with the Care Compact. 10% that other is where a lot of our folks are going to the state hospital for restoration, competency restoration, or long-term stabilization at Fort Logan. 6% we were unable to contact after engaging with them up front. 4% moved out of county, and 3% refused services. So most of our folks are at least wanting services with us. And that concludes the Care Compact in a nutshell, very big nutshell. Any questions? Yes, Wendy.
The slide that's up right now, 41%, I can't read the acronym that is associated with that 41%. Could you explain what that is, please?
That's assisted living or skilled nursing facility level of care. I think actually assisted living would be the most accurate here, since the vast majority of our folks fit that setting rather than skilled nursing facility, which is a higher level. Oh, yes.
Leandra, can you repeat the question so everyone online can hear?
Yeah, so the question was, how sustainable is the work that we're doing in the Care Compact long-term in terms of the financial support we are getting, and if we're expecting to have that financial backing or funding in the long term? I would say, so currently the county pays out of the general fund for this position, which is my position to coordinate this program. We do have a variety of other funding sources that are grant funded to expand to the youth program as well. So Representative Crow, we've got approved funding to bring in a youth care compact navigator to have a specific program for youth. But in addition to that, our county commissioners also approved last fall, the American Rescue Plan Act funding for 3 years to expand the Care Compact, which will offer our partners, especially the ones that are most engaged in this program or frequently on a lot of Care Compact cases, will have dedicated staff to support this work and make sure that our folks are really receiving the amount of attention and care that they are needing or requiring, because a lot of this work can be complex and time consuming. So we're hoping to support our partners in that work and hopefully demonstrate long term that this is going to be saving money for our systems like emergency services, law enforcement, and then we're also hoping our partners will be willing to look at bringing these folks on long-term as well. So that's where we're at currently. We haven't yet moved towards, we haven't yet actually got these positions up and running. The contracts are in the works and the plan for that, but I think that's a very good question, is how sustainable is this long-term? And it really is going to depend on how we're able to blend and braid funding across the community. But the county has really offered a robust amount of support up front for us to get this going and really demonstrate the impact collectively and at the client level.
So my question is for her. She said this is your these are not implemented yet, or they are implemented. I saw 65% of men and 35% of women are accessing resources from what I saw. And then how I've seen our biggest crisis, I think, in America is our failure of our social system. So when you stop trusting and when you trust too much in a social system, you become reliant on it. So how reliant will, I know the more impacted people with developmental disabilities for sure need long-term sustainability. That's not even a question, but more so getting them back to work. And then what is your success rate? Or I saw 2018 is when you started this program. Is that correct?
In 2020, December 2020, we started our pilot with a very small population. So we have begun the Care Compact. The blueprint, I don't know, Laura, if you want to speak more specifically to the blueprint, but that was an evaluation that we had done 2018, 2019 to kind of lay the foundation for the Douglas County Mental Health Initiative in terms of what the county and community needs to really promote wellness across the board, you know, starting with prevention all the way into the deep end of crisis and acute work. And so the blueprint is specific to the mental health initiative. The Care Compact is already fully launched and on board. Our partners have committed through a memorandum of understanding to dedicate staff and time and resources to this program. And we've seen our partners really stretch themselves and kind of the status quo and really meeting these folks where they are. And so in terms of what I've seen on that side, we have dedicated folks that we can reach out to and have a really great response and ongoing connection. We also have an operations team that we have folks represented at all of our partner agencies who are decision makers, and we meet monthly to continually review our impact, things that we can continue to work on to improve. And we also have a software system through Gelada, which has shared care. It's a shared care coordination platform where we can all be on the same page with client records and connections with other partners. So we have quite a few things going, but we're always looking to improve and find growth areas for the Care Compact to support these complex needs.
So ma'am, so here's the deal. We got public comment at the end. This is a session for the executive committee and the working group, but I appreciate it. There will be an opportunity. No, this is not a live town hall, but we will have an opportunity for a public comment in a bit. No problem. Not at all. Any other questions from the working group or the executive committee?
Yes, Laura Hefta from Parker Town Council. Just two questions. We touched on the assisted living facility, and just how do you find these assisted living facilities? Is this paid for or funded by Medicaid? And what does NSF stand for?
Mm-hmm. Skilled nursing facility is what SNF stands for. These are through the Medicaid long-term care waivers. So that's home and community-based services waivers. There's a variety of different ones. There's a DD waiver and an SLS waiver that are specific to folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And then there's community mental health supports waiver, an elderly, blind, and disabled waiver, and a brain injury waiver for folks who have maybe a different type of need. And we work closely with Human Services to start enrolling them. Rocky Mountain Human Services, as our single entry point, also manages and authorizes these services. So we're able to set them up through those kind of processes and agencies.
And then just to follow up on the housing connections, once you do get individuals placed, is there a follow-up after a year to ensure that they're remaining in the housing situation?
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. We are looking at 3 and 6 month post follow-up to see after they're close to the Care Compact. In terms of the housing connection specifically, a lot of times these folks, once they are housed, we're able to better wrap around support for them because they're in a stable and secure place. And so oftentimes that's when we increase services or have folks through All Health, like the ACT team or the DIAD or the PATH team in some cases, meet them in the community to bring the services to them. So we don't necessarily close folks once they're housed. That's not necessarily unless that's kind of the final goal of the client, of course, but.
Any other questions or comments from the executive committee for Leandra? Well, thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate
you.
all the
Of course.
information and all the work you're doing. Commissioner Layden, would you like to do
Jen,
some
sure,
comments?
absolutely. And my thanks to the Mental Health Initiative and certainly all the members of the public that have joined us today. If you have questions or thoughts, we do appreciate hearing them during public comment, and we'll look forward to that. Well, certainly an exciting day, and we're moving forward with our Douglas County Homeless Initiative. Again, want to thank all of the members of the executive committee and our working group. Also want to thank Commissioner Thomas, although not a member, certainly a commissioner and very involved in mental health issues. You know, I had an opportunity to engage with the chiefs of police and the sheriff the other day with regard to the HEART team. HEART team had a wonderful meeting over at Castle Rock Municipal Building. And Tiffany does a great job leading that and is on the ground every day dealing with those in housing crisis. I think what was the most marked comment to me was the honesty with which I think we're seeing the HEART teams and law enforcement engage on this issue. And the reality is, you know, 9 out of 10 individuals that are being engaged with are service resistant. And it is really refreshing that in Douglas County, we have an honest look about what is actually happening out there. We talked specifically about RTD. And we know that for today, the hope was to have a bit of an update from RTD. They've had a few challenges there recently, and so are planning to be joining us here soon. But the reality with the RTD station up north is that that is a place where it has become a hotbed of criminal activity, where there are cars where there's open drug deals, fentanyl contact, not just fentanyl abuse and smoking, but people actually not engaging that are incidentally coming in contact with fentanyl. People that are doing drug deals and doing drugs in the elevator banks, defecating, urinating, litter all over. And then, of course, we had the shooting at RTD. So I was really, I was thankful that RTD hosted a forum for elected officials. Actually, the day after, we had the meeting with law enforcement. And, you know, Deborah Johnson, who is the manager of RTD, hosted this forum with all of the elected officials in the metro area. And the frustration that you might be hearing from me is shared by most of my elected colleagues. I'm very thankful to have Mayor of Castle Rock and Laura Hefta from Parker here, as well as many others that are pretty much in sync on this issue. The comment to Deborah, which I think was received well, we'll see what happens, is you know, their priority is equity, affordability, and simplicity. Those are their 3 top goals. I think our top goal for RTD is safety, 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 right? At this point, our Douglas County residents do not want to get on that RTD light rail or use their services because the perception is that it's unsafe. And how that relates to our homeless initiative is, yes, we want to ensure that our HEART team and law enforcement is engaging in a way that provides services to people at risk, but we need to be very honest about the level of criminal activity that is occurring in places like RTD and take a harder line approach with regard to those crimes. It is not a crime to be homeless, but it's still a crime to commit a crime. So with that, let me, I don't know if the sheriff had any additional comments in that regard. I certainly appreciate your leadership and perspective around public safety.
Yeah, no, you certainly have hit it on the head, and just Chief Wilson was at this meeting as well. And what they're observing, and I want to speak for Commander Beals, is we're having a major issue with people ingesting drugs on the light rail line, that our own residents don't feel safe with public transportation, and that's frankly unacceptable. So we're going to be, Lone Tree is going to be very proactive in their approach, and the sheriff's office is going to assist in any way possible. We're not going to back down. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to have enforcement, and we're going to do everything that we can to ensure that our citizens are safe. And we're going to stand up and we're going to arrest violators.
Well, we appreciate that approach, Sheriff, and no doubt from our citizen surveys and polls that we've seen recently, Homelessness comes in as the #1 issue that citizens are concerned about, with crime and safety being #2. And I also want to recognize the wonderful Marissa Harmon from Lone Tree. We're speaking about Lone Tree specifically, and I don't know if you had any additional thoughts or comments for us.
Thank you so much. I listened in yesterday and you had a really thoughtful question with RTD, so thank you for raising the concern. We're hearing the same thing in Lone Tree, and of course, the last 6 months, I would say there's a large uptick in our response and pressure on our police department. Of course, our #1 concern, I guess I would say, is making sure that we're connecting homeless to services in whatever way we can. With that, council was happy to approve 3 more positions in our police department and our budget session, and we are considering looking at taking one of those and putting them in a fuller time capacity with working with the HEART team. So I know that my daughter was on her way to school the other morning, and she was the first to come upon a homeless person. And so it is not only on our light rails, right, but on our sidewalks that are leading to our schools. And of course, that raises a safety concern. So I appreciate everybody sitting at this table and having an open conversation.
Well, thank you, Councilwoman. We appreciate that. We greatly appreciate the partnership with Lone Tree. At this point, I mean, Douglas County is really pleased and honored to have created our own health department. And so we do have, I think, some wonderful opportunities to have a robust discussion, and I'm very thankful that Mike Hill is here with us. Part of the comment is that if we have open fentanyl use and people being exposed by contact to fentanyl, in addition to the litter and debris, is it relevant and important for us to be thinking about this from a public health perspective?
Yeah, Commissioner, thanks for the short notice request here. The reality of environmental exposure to fentanyl, the risk is extremely low. It's not 0, but it's very low. We're doing things like we're working with the state to get bulk purchasing for for fentanyl test strips and for Narcan, so that we can help. We're working with the coroner, with human services, with other county agencies to make sure that these things are available to them as tools, so that if you get in an area where you suspect that there's fentanyl use and you want to test, we'll make sure people have the test strips in hand. And also, like the coroner's investigators want to carry Narcan in case they run into something, that they can help each other or help others that might be on a scene. So those are the kinds of things we're getting active in. We've started like 2 months ago to get in this process of having bulk ordering authority, but the state bureaucracy moves not swiftly. So I'm hopeful by the end of this month, we'll be able to start passing things out to those law enforcement and other government agencies that want or need these things. But we also need to make sure that we work on communication with Wendy as far as the risk level. You know, there's been a lot of stories recently that someone who used meth was in a library, so they shut down the library for a week to scrub it. Well, that's way over the top. You know, the standards for meth cleanups are meant for a residence where meth is being manufactured. They're not meant for casual, somebody walked by you kind of exposure to meth. So we've really got to, as a community, get our heads wrapped around the reality of these exposures, and then certainly do what we can to protect people from those exposures.
Well, thank you for that, Mike, and sorry to put you on the spot. We're just very thankful that you're here, and with your decades of experience in public health, we know you have this at the tip of your fingertips. Hopefully more conversation, but I think we created a local public health department for a reason, and we're thankful for the ongoing discussion, for sure. Jen?
Yes.
That was a lot of introductions. Sorry.
That was a good conversation, though, necessary to have. So our next up on our agenda is a presentation from All Health. So we have Melissa Bortman and Carla Steffi, Kayla Steffi, sorry.
You're doing great.
Joining us from All Health to talk to us about what their homelessness support looks like. So welcome.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Kayla Steffi. This is Melissa.
Melissa Borton, I'm Clinical Director at All Health.
So we are just here to talk to you guys about some of our services. As Leandra mentioned in her presentation, 100% of the folks that were experiencing mental health were also experiencing some type of housing instability. And so we have several programs, and you're going to see that a lot of them kind of overlap and work collaboratively with each other. And the reason for that is we're really trying to create coverage and fill in the gaps so that people aren't falling through the cracks, and we're able to kind of get everybody and get them the services they need. So the first thing that I'll talk about is our DCHI program, which Leandra briefly mentioned. So this is a program that we've created with the Care Compact. It is a case manager and a peer recovery coach. And not only do they support a majority of the Care Compact folks, some of them have to go to higher levels of care, but they do support the majority of the Care Compact folks. But they also take referrals from CRT. So the CRT team has been great. Anytime they have someone that they're frequently in contact with, that they see this person really does need more wraparound support, they're calling the dyad, and the dyad is going out to go see them wherever they're at. So that could be in their home, that could be at a McDonald's, wherever they're staying, they'll go see them and try and provide that support and then connection into care. They also receive referrals from the jail, specifically our JBBS team, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then the last place that we're starting to get referrals from is the local ERs around Douglas County. So again, our folks that frequently go to the EDs that need more wraparound care, they're going to be referring to the dyad to go out and see, ideally before they're getting discharged from the ERs, so that we can catch them when they're in that space and build that rapport so that they're more likely to engage. Because one of the biggest barriers is people need a lot of mental health and substance use support, but getting into treatment is a huge barrier. There's a lot of stigma around mental health and substance use that makes me not want to go in to get an intake, or I'm experiencing homelessness. And so how do you expect me to go get an intake when I don't have the resources to do that? So the dyad has been great because they're able to work with folks that are not open to all health and provide that support. And then when they're in a stable spot, then they can get them in for an intake so that then All Health can provide all the wraparound supports. So that's been a great program. The second program I'm going to talk about is our JBBS team, and that is our jail-based team. So we have 2 therapists, a team lead, and a care navigator who are in the jail. In the Douglas County Jail, and they are supporting folks both open to all health and not open to all health, and people that are getting raised for competency. And so they are also sending referrals to the dyad for folks that frequently come through the jails that are refusing an intake or that are going to be released back to wherever too quickly for them to get an intake done. So they're referring those people to the dyad. The dyad sometimes will go to the jail as someone's being released to catch them and be like, okay, come with us. We're going to get you some supports now. So the jail-based team has been great about not only connecting people when they can into All Health from the jail, but when they're unable to, referring them to the dyad to get them that support. So that's those programs. I'll let Melissa talk now.
Thanks, Kayla. We also are connected with the Douglas County Cares program. We have a dedicated case manager at All Health who attends those meetings. We provide referrals really as a prevention in many cases. I just want to say that what we know from the community mental health standpoint is that individuals that have a disability are more likely to become homeless in the future because of limited and fixed income. So All Health in general provides a lot of prevention efforts. So we're co-located throughout Douglas County in brick and mortar buildings, but we also have a robust case management team that serves as kind of that support resource connection for our home and community-based programs, for Social Security applications, for low-income housing resources to do a lot of prevention upfront. And then I really want to highlight our newest program, which is our PATH program. So All Health was fortunate enough to receive a federal grant from SAMHSA last fall to start a street outreach team. So we launched this team in August last year. It's a multidisciplinary team that has a therapist, 2 case managers, and a peer recovery coach that are doing street outreach. Since the very beginning, we've coordinated with Tiffany and the Heart team to really look at what that would look like for our collaboration throughout Douglas County. This team does serve Arapahoe and Douglas County, so they're spread thin for how few they are. But the intent of this grant, it was developed to provide community-based, on-the-street mental health support for our individuals who are experiencing homelessness and have a suspected or known mental health and substance use disorder. So as Kayla said, we know that the expectation to come to an appointment in our brick and mortar building at 1 o'clock on Thursday when you are experiencing homelessness is very low. Our no-show rate for homelessness is pretty high. If you're focused on where you're going to get your food, where you're going to stay for the night, you're not thinking about your outpatient therapy appointment. So our team is able to connect, engage, and provide those services on the street in encampments. We also partner with a lot of our homeless service providers. So we are stopping by cold weather shelters, our food banks, our community agencies that provide meals and clothing for individuals who are homeless to really engage with them in those locations and bridge that gap into care. That's it.
Can I add something?
Yeah, go for it, sorry.
Let me sneak back in here. I just want to recognize that the PATH is a 5-year grant. So we have this grant for 5 years because we know that housing resources are really limited. So it does take a while to get people housed, which is why the grant spans for so long. And then in terms of our collaboration with the Heart team, what we're doing in Arapahoe County looks a little different than what we're doing in Douglas County because Arapahoe County does not have a Heart team. And so we've really worked collaboratively with Heart, and Heart sends our PATH team referrals for folks that they're encountering that they see need ongoing support. Okay. Anything else you want to add? Okay. Any questions, guys?
I have a question, and first and foremost, a huge thanks to you for all you're doing. That's a great presentation, and we know the incredible value of these supports, especially peer support. Yeah. So the county commissioners sit on a board called MAC, the Metro Area County Commissioners, with all the commissioners in the metro area. It is a very small group of commissioners, but we represent over half the state's population. I am of the firm belief that co-response can really be a significant area that we can point toward to help support you all and support the people in a housing crisis. Denver has I think it's called STAR or STARS. Is it STARS? We have our Heart team, but to your point, you just indicated Arapahoe does not have that co-response, at least in the homelessness space. I've talked to a few of their commissioners, and they do have co-response for the mental health side, right? What would it take, do you think, for our neighbors to the north to maybe partner with us on co-response? Is that something that you would recommend we talk about expanding harder? Would they have their own program, or what would that look like?
I can speak a little to this. So All Health Network has launched a mobile response unit, which is similar to the STAR program in Denver. We launched that program in Inglewood in collaboration with the Inglewood Police Department. So we have in All Health in Arapahoe County contracts the co-responder program. So we do have co-responders that are out with PD that are trained mental health professionals. When it's a low-level mental health concern, that is when our new mobile response unit is dispatching. So often that looks like there's a homeless man who's sleeping on the sidewalk and I'm fearful that he's overdosed. I don't know that that something is happening for him, that he needs response. There's not a crime being committed. We don't need police response, but we need a more immediate mental health response. That's a case manager and a nurse that respond. And then we are extending that program to Littleton. That should be launching later this month. And so we were able to stand those programs up with grants. Arapahoe County has, because it's vast, so the city of Aurora has their own mental health center, and they have their own PATH team. So they are providing street outreach, wraparound, all of the things that we talked about as our PATH team. And then Inglewood, Littleton, and Sheridan are kind of collaboratively identified as the Tri-Cities, and they have their own homelessness action plan that actually embeds our PATH team in the street outreach that we're doing. So while they don't have a heart team, they have a network called Change the Trend of agencies that support individuals who are homeless and getting connected to the variety of services that they need.
Yeah. Well, I know we have more questions, but our sheriff, I think maybe just stepped out. He's trying to run public safety for the whole county, so we're thankful for his time. But, he often says that we're really lucky that our navigators have not been hurt, harmed, when they're encountering people out on the street, especially later in the day, that something violent or more dangerous hasn't occurred. So yes, we love people, clinicians and social service professionals providing those services and engaging, but how are we ensuring that we have that protection? Because again, I think that's the amazing thing about our heart team and co-response is you have law enforcement right there just in case things get hairy.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So we have a couple of things. So we have an app called Alert Media that our team has on their phone, and it like pings a signal, and it has like a panic button in case they're in a situation that's not great. Also, sometimes if they're going to a really populated area with like a lot of folks that are unhoused, like on the Platte River, there tends to be a lot of tents there. They'll call dispatch and just alert them that they're going to be in the area so that a patrol car can just be right there. They're not going to go down to the trail with the PATH team, mainly because a lot of folks that are unhoused have trauma around like law enforcement, and so they won't engage with the PATH team if they go down, but they're like right there just in case. And then, Melissa and I have done trainings with the PATH team around like de-escalation techniques and how to stay safe, from like, I'm just gonna, keep my distance to, noticing things that are a little off, especially if someone's using substances, like recognizing warning signs and just knowing when to get yourself out. Yeah. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah. So as trained mental health professionals, we're all trained in de-escalation techniques. As Kayla said, we've engaged over 100 unique individuals in this team just since our actual start in September, and we are thankful that we have had no issues. We have found that when we identify ourselves as behavioral health professionals, that individuals are willing to speak with us because often we hold resources. When we show up with police, as Kayla said, there's a trauma response, and they think they're in trouble and they don't want to engage and talk with us. So we've done a lot of support and wraparound with our local PD, coordinating with HEART to make sure that individuals are safe before we're outreaching and engaging them, and or doing so in public spaces. So as I mentioned, some of our cold weather shelters and food banks and food pantries, so we're in public locations, and they're always partnered. So we don't ever have anyone going out doing street outreach individually. They're often doing it 2 or 3 at a time.
Yeah, that's helpful, and I apologize. I was talking about the sheriff when he stepped out. We were talking about your comment that, co-response really helps when you have law enforcement, and we're lucky that somebody has not been hurt. I don't know if you had anything additional on that.
No, I think that's my primary concern with the HEART team, and it's a little bit different than the crisis response teams. And I just think that there is a higher level for potential injury, certainly to the navigators, and it's a big concern of mine. I understand the resistance to certain individuals if there's a law enforcement officer standing there, and certainly we don't want to inhibit somebody's willingness to get help. But with that being said, I want to ensure that those navigators are safe. And, if we have an approach where, the law enforcement officer leads that conversation, then backs away, whatever is needed. But what we don't want to have is a tragedy involving a navigator or an exposure to, body fluids or fentanyl. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can kill. And so we don't want to have that tragedy happen.
Yeah. I mean, this space, I really lean on your expertise and those in law enforcement and public safety. I mean, the safety of the navigators and the behavioral health experts is so critical, especially when you have all that engagement. I mean, I see nodding heads. I know you know that firsthand. The other alarming statistic is that, 9 out of 10 are justice involved, have, criminal issues and warrants out for their arrest. If a navigator is engaging somebody and leading with that and there's a crime being committed, what is best practices in terms of how to deal with that?
Are you asking us for?
Well, I think we're here to try to do what's possibly best in this space. And again, I don't think there's any perfect model, and things are always going to go bad on occasion, but it just seems like that co-response is great when they're working as a team. You have that behavioral health expert with law enforcement, and you don't want people to be resistant because of law enforcement, but then you don't want the navigator to be unsafe. And how do you?
And if I could add, Commissioner, I think it's important to note that the deputies and I know the police officers that are selected for these job assignments, they're handpicked. They're carefully picked for their ability to de-escalate the situation, to relate to these folks, to develop a rapport with these individuals. We don't want somebody that's badge heavy going in there and right off the bat, the communication is shut down. So we carefully select these individuals so we do have that open communication. So it's important. We do the same thing with our school resource officers. We want to assign the best deputy or law enforcement officer to those job assignments so that we are successful in what our mission is.
That's a good point. And I think that can help us change the narrative that somehow law enforcement can't be compassionate and can't de-escalate. Hopefully they're well-trained or trained enough that they can partner with an expert in the field to do that well. Marissa, did you have a comment? Sure, sorry about that.
Thank you so much for your great presentation. I'm curious, would the individual need to agree to have you come out if they were engaging with CRT and CRT brought up the Pathways group? Would they need to say, yes, okay, you're okay to come out, or what does that look like?
That's such a good question. No. Well, we just go out. So both the DIAD and PATH, whenever they receive referrals from either HEART or CRT, are just going to go out and try and convince them to work with us. If they say no, then we'll respect that and not go back out. But initially, no.
Our teams are all trained in motivational interviewing. And so I think that, initial thought of like 9 out of 10 are refusing to access supports or services. The intent is that maybe the first time we go out, that's true. And then we're going to talk about what supports we have and how we can help engage them. And probably by the third or fourth contact we have, they've kind of lowered that barrier and are more willing to engage with us.
And then I had one more question. The peer recovery coach, when is the peer recovery coach present? What would trigger that? And is this someone who's experienced homelessness previously?
Yeah. She has experienced homelessness in the metro area for several years, actually. So she, yes, is great. Like Melissa said, for Arapahoe County is obviously different, so we send them out at least in pairs. Douglas County, because we're able to partner with the HEART team, and they're able to kind of vet that safety initially because, they're out there doing the frontline work. We'll usually send people more one-on-one in Douglas County if it's safe. And so honestly, peer recovery coaches are often, the research shows, the bridge to engagement because they understand your situation and what you've been through. And so peers, we rely on our peer to be one of the initial points of contact because she can really help get that buy-in of like, I get it, I've been there. And here's what's helped me. Connecting to mental health services has helped me. Like, let me bring in my case manager and my therapist. So often the peer is an initial point of contact.
Well, thank you to both of you. We appreciate your presentation and all the information that you're sharing. And again, all the great work that you're doing, working and interacting with HEART. Whatever we can do to encourage enhanced collaboration along those lines, please do let us know. I mean, we want to learn from you as much as we can to make this the best approach in Douglas County. So thank you both.
How about a round of applause for Leandra and Melissa. Appreciate it, you guys.
Okay, so next we have the Heart Day update from Tiffany.
Thank you, Jen. So for February of this year, we provided case management services to 9 of our clients. We were able to help 2 of them with benefit assistance, whether that is food stamps, Medicaid, anything that had to deal with human services. 4 were referred to community partners, whether that would be Catholic Charities, Help and Hope, MANA, All Health Path Team. 3 were assisted with housing searches, so we were able to either provide them with applications or help navigate them to where they can obtain an application for housing. 4 were referred to workforce development. So if somebody needed employment or to update their resume, we would help navigate them to an agency that could assist with that. 6 clients were given hotel vouchers from either our faith-based partners or our nonprofit community partners. And then also in February, we received 117 referrals. 78% of those were from law enforcement. The Heart was able to contact 40 of those, and they were actually interested in receiving services. 34 were information only, so if law enforcement came across the individual either after hours or on the weekends and they weren't really wanting to engage with Heart, or they were resistant to services, that's where that information only number comes from. 25 we were unable to locate. 14 we contacted, but they were not interested in receiving services. And then we found 4 unoccupied camps. Of those 117 referrals, 106 of those were unduplicated individuals. And to let you know, those are not 106 new homeless individuals. They were new to the month of February. So it could be somebody that we had been working with in the past. We hadn't been able to contact them within a month, and then they came back. So that's where the unduplicated number came from. And I do have a success story that I would like to share with you all. Greg Matthews, who is one of our navigators in Lone Tree and Parker area, came across a panhandler that he had seen quite a bit. He was able to contact the individual. The individual was able to provide him with a little bit of information. And Greg learned that he had been homeless for more than 40 years. The man initially said, "I'm not interested in going to a shelter. I'd rather live on the street. I have all my belongings with me, and this is the life that I want to live." Greg continues to engage with those individuals to try to gain rapport and help make them realize, there are other opportunities for you if you, just let me in a little bit. After an initial assessment that Greg completed, he learned that the man had multiple items that were stolen from him by another individual who was homeless. So the man was without food, a sleeping bag, a jacket. And Greg was able to provide him with emergency food and reached out to some of our local faith-based and nonprofit partners so he would be able to have a sleeping bag and at least a warm jacket. And Greg also was able to help him apply for food stamps and health insurance right where he was. During a follow-up meeting, the man had mentioned to Greg that he had a potential employment opportunity in Kentucky, and he would be able to have a job and a possible roof over his head. He had a friend over there that was willing to help him out. Greg reached out to one of our faith-based partners, and that faith-based partner was able to purchase a Greyhound bus ticket for him to get to Kentucky so he can have employment. The faith-based partner also put him up in a hotel the night before he departed so he could have a warm place to stay and a shower so he could go to Kentucky and start his employment. So I just wanted to thank Greg for his persistence and collaboration with our faith-based partners and our local nonprofits because we wouldn't have been able to get this man to where he needed to be without the support from them. That's all I have.
That is so exciting, and I have to tell you, I mean, every time I hear from Tiffany, it just, I think, encourages and inspires, and, you know, obviously the data point with our point in time being reduced through your engagement and the work of our Handouts Don't Help campaign, I think is really significant. You know, I might add that Board of County Commissioners are going to be in Washington, D.C. The week of the 21st, and one of the items we're working on is the new federal earmark that we can get through Congress. There is some potential alignment with some of our senators' offices around social services, and this may be one area where Board of County Commissioners asks for additional funding to not only continue to support the HEART team, but potentially expand it. And if there's an opportunity to increase the length of time and the number of teams, we really like to invest in things that have a great return on investment. And this is just an incredible return. So we'll see how that goes, but thank you so much for that update. Yep. Yeah, Mayor.
Just kind of build on that. Just yesterday, Town of Castle Rock Chief Jack Colley just signed a letter to Senator Hickenlooper, really kind of thanking Douglas County Sheriff and the HEART team for all their work and how it has benefited Castle Rock as well, and how we would love to support that earmark. So thank you.
Mayor, thank you so much. I think that's the value of having our esteemed elected officials here at the table with us. In Douglas County, you all are so engaged, and we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Tiffany or the HEART team? Okay. Well, we would like to move on to our sign committee update. I just want to let you all know that Douglas County staff has been working hard to coordinate between where we are seeing HEART referral activity and where we have some potential opportunities to put some sign locations that are near in our right-of-way that are in connection with our RTD stops. So those will be coming forward. I'm expecting in the next, coming soon. We're looking at several different locations kind of along Lincoln Avenue, Highlands, the university, into the Highlands Ranch Parkway area. We have seen some activity that is kind of between Lucent and Broadway. So we're looking at identifying some areas where the handouts don't help signs can be located, but it's also where we're seeing some referral activity from HEART. So those will be coming forward soon. Wanted to let you all know about that. We also, in addition, have heard from the Highlands Ranch Metro District that they have placed 3 of the 5 signs that they plan to place. So one has been placed at Civic Center Park, one at Central Park, and one at Northridge Park. So some additional installation of signs in those areas as well. Still having communication with CDOT as far as additional no trespass signs. I am hearing some positive feedback from HEART and law enforcement that those signs have, the 6 signs, 6 to 8 signs that have been installed are helpful and have helped us to decrease that activity in some of those areas. So I think we'll continue to have those conversations with CDOT and work with them to make sure that we have that enforcement kind of piece alongside the sign that has been installed. So a little more work to do there. And at this point, I'm going to pass it off to Wendy to give us an update on the public awareness side.
Thank you. Jennifer and I are teamed up because Jennifer talks about the actual signage going up. And my role is to try to get that same message, handouts don't help, out in other ways. So as you I think everybody knows, last month at this time, following this meeting, we had a press conference. And that was one of the greatest door openers for this initiative, to tell the story, not only of HEART and what HEART does, but also how we tailor solutions to the unhoused in this county based on all of the assets that we have. As you just heard from Tiffany, we meet people where they are, and if they are not service resistant, we have a way to help them in many ways through many partners. In addition to that, the handouts don't help signage. Since we last met, I've been in contact with my colleagues over at the Highlands Ranch Metro District and the Highlands Ranch Community Association, talking about simple things like posters. Can we take that sign and create posters? Well, of course, we'd love to have posters in our rec centers, in our facilities, which open the conversation to maybe we should be polling our chambers to talk with our businesses, to see what kind of signage, same message, handouts don't help, they would be willing to do within their businesses. So that conversation is starting, and I wanted everyone to know about that. I love polling, so I'd love to work with the chambers to see if we can get a message out to all of their members to see what they might be responsive to. And if it isn't posters, is it stickers? Is it flyers? Is it little index cards? Whatever it is. So we're trying to get more grassroots around getting that message out. The other thing I wanted to share of the grassroots effort, many of you who live in Douglas County, wherever you live in Douglas County, have a HOA newsletter. Here's a good example of where I live, this HOA newsletter from Stonegate. There's a network of HOA newsletters that are distributed both in paper to homes and online. And because we are a service organization, they accept free content from us, not just narrative, but looks like little ads that we could put. So that grassroots effort is underway as well. Would you take this handouts don't help art for placement on your web pages, in your web electronic version of your HOA newsletter, and in your hard copies? So I think that's really all I had to report, and happy to take any questions anyone may have.
Well, I think it's an incredible note of gratitude to Jen and Wendy and all of staff and our partnerships with the municipalities and our businesses. We often say we try to begin with the end in mind. What is the point of these signs, right? What we are trying to do is get to functional zero in terms of people experiencing a housing crisis. And oftentimes, we realize panhandling is somewhat different, but our citizens have made it very clear to us that they are concerned when they see people with dogs and medians and babies and, trash and litter and tents set up where they should not be. And I might ask Amy, sorry, I'm putting people on the spot a little bit, so, but I know you're prepared on this one, but one issue is being able to support law enforcement. We know that it is not safe for people to be handing out money at intersections or receiving money in a traffic thoroughfare. So Amy, I don't know if you have anything additional in terms of, law enforcement's ability to engage with people when there's a safety issue at risk. Here we go. I know. Do too.
We have everyone trained here.
Thank you, Commissioner Layden. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. As we've discussed, certainly if there's a safety issue, then there's no problem. I mean, we have court precedent that says as much. And we have discussed working with Douglas County Sheriff's Office to do studies when there have been, close calls or issues with people being too close to ongoing traffic or causing, congestion when cars are stopping to roll their window down and put things out. So we definitely support that. And as far as, I think our position has been, we're willing to do what we need to do for safety. And there really isn't a precedent in the 10th Circuit. And so we're willing to do what we have to do to ensure the safety of Douglas County. And if that means going to court to support what we believe is right, we're willing to do that.
That's great, Amy. Thank you. And certainly appreciate the legal support from the county to really encourage and allow law enforcement to do what they do best. But I don't know about you all, but I've already seen sort of a drying up in Douglas County at a lot of intersections. I'm not seeing as much panhandling. I'm not seeing as many encampments out there. So it seems to be working well. And again, that public safety aspect, we're not asking people not to give. And I'm really glad that Mike Wade is here from our Douglas County Community Foundation. There is a link on that sign that very clearly directs individuals to give and give generously to a trusted nonprofit, specifically the Douglas County Community Foundation. And Mike, I don't know if you had anything additional on that, but you're a big part of the Handouts Don't Help campaign.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Commissioner. The Douglas Has Heart Fund was set up as a donor-directed fund with us. And as you mentioned, when an individual is at the county's website and there's a button prompting them to donate now, it takes them directly to the donation mechanism at Douglas County Community Foundation. Right now, we're just finishing out some of the details with the MOU between us and the county. But the good news is that it looks like right now with the donations that have come in, once we get all of those pieces put together, we'll be able to make our first distribution, which is great news. We've had donations come in ranging from, I think the lowest is $20, the largest is at just under $1,000, and a whole lot in between. And so that fund is doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's sitting right now at just under $3,500. So the fantastic part of that is once we get all the details in place, we'll make our first $2,500 distribution to one of the allocated nonprofits here in Douglas County serving the homeless community. And we just shake and repeat. And as soon as it gets over $2,500, the next one in line receives the next, and so on and so forth. So it's a good program, and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing.
That's awesome, Mike. Thank you so much for your leadership. And for those who don't know, what are some of the nonprofits that are receiving those resources?
Jen, you'll have to help me on this. I know Help and Hope Center is the first one on the list, so they'll be receiving the first one. Winter Shelter Network.
Douglas County Homeless
The Douglas County
Initiative,
Home, and then there was the fourth.
and the Goals
Goals,
program.
thank you. So many, in Douglas, just a little side note, in Douglas County, there's just north of 320 active 501c3s. So we represent all of them, and so they sometimes get, bumbled around in my head there. So thank you for the clarifications on those.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And we often say, give where you live, and the Douglas County Community Foundation is a great way to do that. So,
Absolutely.
Any other questions about the sign campaign?
Any other questions? And I'm not seeing anything from online. So we're.
Sorry, I do have a question of our municipalities, and I'm very thankful that they're all here. Is that helpful if we provide posters free of cost? I mean, would your businesses be interested in having some of those? And certainly the county's willing to get those up, but we wouldn't do anything that you guys would not ask us to do.
I'll chime in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will loop in with city staff and see where we can get a cohesive message out. I also wanted to mention we're evaluating all of our medians. And so if it is unlawful to be on one of our medians because the width is, what is it, 6 feet?
Less than 6 feet.
Less than 6 feet. You cannot stand on a median to panhandle. So we are determining what those medians are to place signs there. So that's where we are at.
Lone Tree was a big author of the Handouts Don't Help language, and of course Castle Rock Communications helped design it. So there's really no pride in authorship. This is a big partnership. Laura?
Yes, I think the Chamber of Commerce, businesses, and the library as well has a bulletin board. So if someone could approach the director, Mr. Pesninsky, I think, Douglas County Libraries.
Yeah.
They have a board in there as well. I do think HOA newsletters, private businesses, chambers would be very open to sponsoring this because it is an education campaign for the community. So I think it's a great idea.
It's a really good point, Laura. We appreciate that. And, in Douglas County, we say we don't wait to do great. The libraries were in last week. We talked about this, and they said, we've got the electronic kiosks that will rotate messages. We'll just, take your signage and put it right in there if you're interested. So good idea. I think it's happening, right, Wendy? Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I want to thank Wendy and Jen as well for all the information. I think it's a good idea that that the county gets in touch with the town and also with the chambers and see what we can do there. Again, one thing we talk about a lot when I'm in meetings is there's no such thing as over communication. you say it again and you say it again. And I just think that, so many times we'll hear something from our citizens saying, well, I didn't know that was going on. We've been doing that for 24 years, but for some reason it just passed through the cracks. So there's no reason we can't just keep communicating to a point where it feels like we're over communicating.
That's great. And you're a great communicator, Mayor, so you lead by example.
I know that we have an additional comment from Council Member Rance from Castle Pines online.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. I would echo the comment. I can check with our Chamber of Commerce on the posters and idea, but we do actually, we just hosted a summit with our HOA boards, and we have pretty good open dialogue right now with our HOA communities. And so any of that messaging, we can certainly coordinate that through our community development side and our public information officer.
That's great. Thank you to Kevin and Castle Pines. And if the county had a small ask of our municipal partners, we know that our Douglas County Economic Development Collaborative includes all of the EDCs and chambers, but our business community, especially the large corporate companies, the Home Depots, the King Soopers, they operate differently depending on which county they're in. Locally, certainly they can have those signs placed in their businesses, and they can also sign a trespass letter, which would allow the HART team to engage, where those businesses are at. Those managers at the Home Depots may not be sure what to do when they see somebody, asking for donations in the front. So maybe some education with your local businesses, and we'd be happy to provide whatever you all need for your businesses. So do we have I know it was Amy Sherman who was our EDC representative here, but I know it's really important to have the business community here.
I don't know if we might have someone online. We can of course reach out again. Luke, do you know if we have any online?
Well, and I'm just saying as members of our working group and executive committee, having a representative from the EDCs, I think would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll follow up on that. Absolutely. Make sure they are all invited. That is all very good news, and I think just a great opportunity for more awareness, more outreach, and more ways for us to just spread that word and that message. So, okay, we are at the portion of public comment for the meeting. We have a few minutes left. I know that we do not have anyone signed up for public comment, but want to ask those in the room if anyone is interested in coming up to the podium and using the microphone up there so everyone online can also hear. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Mark Andrews. I live in the Sapphire Point area. Great information here. Very appreciative of that, getting the message out, but the handouts don't help. That really tugs on the heart. People feel like they're doing good by handing out. I'm one of them, and I've had to resist that over the years. I'd suggest a campaign in the local Douglas News Press, the little newspaper that gets thrown out every Thursday. I read that thing religiously and signed up for it online also so I don't miss it, so I can share subject matter with my 3 adult children. The younger generation is disconnected from local news. They stream all their information. They don't watch any kind of local weather, local news. My daughters and son-in-laws are guilty of that. So I'm constantly trying to pass information. Just throw that out there. Might consider doing that not only with your businesses, but put it in that newspaper also. I think that would reach a lot of people out there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us and for your engagement. You're like our favorite type of citizen. You're actually paying attention and engaged. That's awesome. Wendy, did you want to respond to, don't wait to do great.
Well, the good news is a lot of people read those newspapers. And because we know that every other week, do you know that 4-color, half-page vertical ad that we run in the newspaper, every once in a while, take a look at the very bottom of that, and you're going to see a handouts don't help block of copy. So we started to put that in our print ad that we run every week. And we've also, every time we push our button, I just call it the magic button, we reach about 210,000 touch points. And working with our municipalities, even more. And our Highlands Range Metro District, et cetera. So we're doing a lot of social media as well, pushing that out. And the interesting thing about it is the response has been just really good. Lots of positive feedback, just like yours. Thank you for that.
Any other? Yes, okay.
I can't imagine more beautiful people that are leading this initiative. Thanks, Abe. I've watched your I think it's right by the light stale that or light rail, your presentation and the Heart Initiative. I just barely moved to Douglas County about 1.5 years ago, and the police department, Sheriff, Deputy Weekly, incredible men and compassionate men, and the people in Douglas County. They have created a good environment. But I think the thing that I have learned, thanks Tiffany for the comment, I think it was Greg or Matt, who did that, Greg? So today, right after this, I'll go to the Arapahoe County Detention Center, the prison. I worked with 12 people just ripped this off. I worked with 12 people. Instead of going to college, I went on the streets, and I had a medical unit and a food, and I had clothing, and I had hot heat warmers, I had shovels, everything, strings, ropes, everything, and it proved highly effective. And I'm glad I sold that car. It was kind of trashed or traded in because I used it all winter, and the amount of people that were blessed. But I cried at the end of helping 12 people because I felt like it helped no one. So today, sorry, I've never used this. So today I will go and be by Sam, a young man accused falsely of sexual assault battery, put in prison. And I met him right before Christmas, him and a young 17-year-old girl, runaway girl, and Sam had just expended all his funds at 19, had supported himself with no family from Africa. And long story short, we kept in contact. He needed a phone, so I bought him a phone and paid his phone bill. He's working full-time out in, but he has a GPS around his ankle, and hopefully, I hope. So I posted the bail, the bond. It was $20,000 for this young kid that had no money. It was homeless, right? And so I posted $2,000 with a bondsman, and it's 10%. And then I paid his debt to the prison, and today I won't represent him. I'll stand by him as a human being, as someone who was falsely accused. And I know this kid, the 17-year-old girl, ran away from home and then ran away again. She had been raped and had no father, no family, really. And she hit him in the face, and the police showed up, bloody nose, and handcuffed him and took the black boy to prison. And he called me from prison on a Saturday night. I was eating dinner at a Chinese restaurant in Highlands Ranch, and I get this phone call, and the IT system with the prison is so bad. And so it took a couple days, but then I thought, I'm not posting bail because he has no one out here. He has no support, and he'll be ripped across the coals with no food, no home, and he'll be on the streets long term. So I contacted a lawyer that I knew very well, and he said, leave him in there. At least he'll get food and represented by someone, a lawyer or attorney, to represent him. So long story short, as he got out, he came home, and today I know he'll be innocent. He's got a full-time job, and he's one of the most remarkable young men. He stood by Cammie, and I know text from Cammie, I knew both of them. The personal touch with people is our best resource, and we don't always have the money to do it right then, but the immediacy is then, not tomorrow, and not give them an application. They can hardly get a bus ticket to find it and then to pay for it. It's ineffective, as I've seen. But I think the biggest thing is the strength of our humanity and our hands and our eyes, and they can make it another week on the streets. if they have the potential. So as I said last time, we are facing, with the government increasing inflation again,
And ma'am, if you could just
2
wrap up your
million, yep, I'm
comments.
out of time, thank you.
Yeah.
2 million people, middle class, out of work.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your heart and passion. Appreciate that. Absolutely. Any other public comment?
Okay, I think I have no comments online. So I think we can go with closing comments.
Okay, well, I'm not going to stand between you and your next meetings. Thank you so much for being here with us. We appreciate all of you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you all.